All right, this is Councilwoman Kathleen Murphy, and it is 5:30 for our meeting, but I'm going to give it just a few more minutes to let people hop on. So we'll probably get started about 5:35. All right, so this is Councilwoman Kathleen Murphy. I think I just said 5:35. I usually try to start about 3 minutes after, but we'll go ahead and get started with my introductory kind of comments. And just in case I don't remember if staff told me if I need to give a countdown for Metro Network, I'll go ahead and do that now. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I realized as I did that there was immense pressure to make sure I counted correctly. So I'm sorry about that. Welcome to our community meeting tonight about Skyview Apartments in Sylvan Heights. This is our second virtual meeting, or it's our second meeting about this property. We had one last fall in person, and I wanted to make sure that we met again before this went to the Planning Commission. And I appreciate y'all with having some understanding with this being virtual tonight. I had hip replacement surgery on the 2nd of this month. And so I'm trying to limit how many times I am out and about, physically limiting that as I am in recovery still. So this is the project for the current apartment kind of condos complex in Sylvan Heights currently. And like I said, it is slated to go to the Planning Commission on March 9th. If you have comments for the Planning Commission, their email, I'll make sure I'll put that in the chat box, and feel free to copy me on those emails. I think what is important tonight is to really pay attention to what they are proposing. This is a property that has for a long time been in the federal program for affordable housing, and they have an obligation to continue providing housing opportunities for those residents and providing that relocation opportunity for the existing Skyview residents is part of this project. They will have to do that under the federal guidelines before they can move people out of what is currently there. And I know that the Trent development team that I'm going to turn it over to in just a little bit is has already done projects like this in other parts of Nashville where they have had HUD housing vouchers and projects or projects that have turned from HUD housing into regular housing, and then they've relocated their current residents. And so I've seen them do this in other areas, specifically in Council Lady Emily Benedict in Inglewood and East Nashville. And I know that they are talking with the planning department and with the mayor's office about some other locations of where they can move current residents before they would start on this project if approved. And I'm going to let them kind of get into those more of those details and weeds. So tonight is an updated version of the plan that we've seen, and Alex Trent and the design team will go over it. And so if you have any questions, please put those in the chat. Because this is a virtual public meeting, and another council member may join on the call at some point. Under the state open records law, we cannot have open deliberation because this is something that could go before the council. And so what you put into the chat for questions, if you will send them to your options, I believe, are to hosts and co-hosts. If you will send that to me, and I will read off your questions when we get to the questions and answers after they've presented. So Alex, would you like to just go ahead and take over? I see your slides are up, so why don't y'all kick that off, and then we will go through the questions that people put into the chat box for me.
Sure. Thank you guys for coming out this evening or getting on this evening. Again, thank you, Councilmember Murphy, for putting this on and working with us through this process. My name is Alex Trent with Trent Development Group, and we're really excited about this plan. And we received a lot of support from the community, so we thank you for that. We wanted to make sure we had another community meeting so that we could address any comments or concerns that you may still have. We've tried to be very responsive to the community, to Kathleen and to planning, and coordinating what this actually will end up looking like. And I think we've produced, in my opinion, a beautiful concept that works with the neighborhood, and embraces the evolution of the neighborhood, and really highlights that capstone property on the top of it. I think it was an excellent opportunity to get some good infill density in Nashville, some thoughtful density, and some of that missing middle housing that Nashville desperately needs, and provide housing choices throughout Nashville, but more specifically in the West Nashville area. As the owner of Skyview Apartments for a long time, we've done the best we can to try and maintain that property, but it's well beyond its remaining useful life, and needs to be redeveloped. So there is a multi-year relocation effort underway. And as Councilmember Murphy mentioned, in East Nashville, we have a similar project or a similar plan that we've enacted where we have apartments under construction. But we're fully committed to building, we're affordable housing developers first and foremost. And so we're fully committed to creating a new apartment complex with enhanced amenities, added green space, more walkability along transit corridors, and in good school zones for the residents of Skyview. What they live in now isn't up to our standard, and so we'd like to build a brand new facility, mixed income, and truly enhance what we can deliver for those residents. It'll have an on-site nonprofit partner solely dedicated to social support programming for those residents, job training, procurement, facilitation, support, education, supplementary education programming, tutoring, you name it. We're going to try to produce it or facilitate it in an enhanced facility with added resources that we really can't take advantage of at this current site. But I think we've hopefully addressed a lot of your concerns to date with the changes that we've made over the last 2 years in designing this plan. We hired Smith G Studio and Reagan Smith as our design team, and they're just top-notch Nashville companies. So, you know, I think over this 2-year process, we've put together a beautiful property that hopefully you guys all like and support. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Troy with Reagan Smith and let him get into a little bit more of the details of the plan. Thank you for coming out.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. My name is Troy Gardner. I'm a landscape architect with Reagan Smith Associates. And just like Alex was mentioning, this is a project that has been been coming through the years and through some evolution to get here. We have worked on multiple design iterations for this site. So, you know, we're happy that we have heard your feedback on from our first neighborhood meeting and all of the collaborations we've had with Metro, and that we've been able to get to the plan that we have that we're hoping to take for Planning Commission. With that said, since our last neighborhood meeting, like I mentioned before, we've had quite a bit of coordination with the various Metro departments. So that includes planning. We have confirmed with them that the uses for this site will be multifamily. So that's what you see on the site on the screen here. And have also confirmed that there will be prohibited uses. So there will not be any short-term rental properties on this site at all. That will be a prohibited use. We have also confirmed architectural standards. And so those will include things like building facades and which direction they're fronting, the amount of glazing on the properties, the buildings rather, and the building materials themselves shall be constructed of brick veneer, stone, cast stone, cementitious siding, glass, or substantially similar materials. The porches for these units will have to be 6 feet deep, and all residential structures will have to be have a raised foundation of 1.5 to 3 feet. We've also worked with Metro Planning to kind of understand how this site fits in with the surrounding context. And I'll just jump forward in the presentation a little bit for that. So here you can see on the left is the existing Skyview apartment. And on the right is the proposed kind of massing model for that. And I think this is just this exhibit does a really great job of showing how we're really consolidating that footprint and kind of opening up the site. And hopefully, as we'll show in a few minutes, quite a bit more amenities and almost like a park-like feel to the site. We also worked with Metro Planning to prepare a site section, which kind of just shows how the existing public roads and homes around the site, what their sight lines of the site would be. And in many cases, there are either existing homes or proposed units that are essentially buffering between the neighborhood and the unit on top of the hill. Some of the other coordination that we've been involved in is working with planning to confirm that there will be a 5-foot sidewalk and 4-foot wide grass strip along all of the site's public frontages. And so that would be along 38th Avenue and Dakota Avenue. Doing this did result in the removal of on-street parking. So I think that came up a little bit at the first neighborhood meeting. So this is a Metro standard, and we just wanted to make sure that we were complying with that. Another thing, we coordinated with the Metro Fire Marshal, and basically that is just confirming that the development will meet all the applicable building and fire codes. We've also been in coordination with Nashville's Department of Transportation, reviewing if there are any turn lanes that need to be added at 38th Avenue or Charlotte Pike. We've been working with WeGo and have agreed to provide an upgraded inbound transit stop at Charlotte Pike and 38th Avenue. We've also been working with traffic and parking, and that included preparing a traffic impact study. There were 4 intersections that were studied as part of the traffic report. Those were Charlotte Avenue at 38th Avenue North, 38th Avenue North at Dakota Avenue, Murphy Road at 37th Avenue, and 38th at the project access point. Some of the other items that we were able to confirm with him were that we would be providing pavement markings and installing double yellow lines on 38th Avenue from Charlotte Pike to Dakota Avenue, stop bars on all the side streets, and crosswalks where they exist currently. And then lastly, we had coordination efforts with Metro Stormwater to confirm where the site will be, where the stormwater discharge will be. Right now, it looks like that's going to be it will drain to an existing 48-inch storm sewer at 40th Avenue and Elkins Avenue. So per Metro stormwater regulations, we will design and provide stormwater measures that meet the requirements of water quality and quantity. Metro's Nashville Stormwater Manual for low impact development features such as bioretention or permeable pavers will most likely be used to provide the water quality requirement for this development. And as of right now, we have a detention pond on site that will meet the water quantity requirements. So yeah, we will have stormwater features that will be implemented to meet Metro stormwater regulations and ensure that there are no additional runoff to neighbors occurring on this site. And then, I don't know, Alex, if you wanted me to go through or not, or if you would like to, but just the various amenity features that we're proposing.
You can go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, this is the exciting part for me as a landscape architect is the amenity section. There are quite a few being proposed on this site. Some of them are even being proposed for the greater Sylvan Heights community to have access to. I may actually flip forward a slide and show that. So here at Dakota Avenue, where the number 1 is shown, that is a proposed dog park. And everything that's shaded in yellow, these first couple that I'm going to go through, are proposed to be publicly accessible amenities. So the dog park would be one of those. There is a walking trail feature that is about halfway up the hill from Dakota Avenue to the highest point on the site that loops around the storm basin. So kind of the intent is to give a park-like feel and for the public to be able to access that area. There's also at the head of the walking trail, this item number 3, which will be a seating plaza. So kind of just a place for the public to just hang out or rest as they're about to take on the trail or as they're making their way up the grand staircase here. Also, number 4 is the plaza located at Dakota Avenue and 38th Avenue. That you can see, we have images along the way here, kind of depicting the character of those spaces. Like I mentioned before, there will be public sidewalk along Dakota and 38th, and this will obviously all connect back to those areas that I've mentioned before. The grand staircase, this is kind of intended to be like a monumental staircase, maybe something like you would find at one of the Warner parks. It's kind of the design inspiration we had there. And so those are kind of the bulk of the publicly accessible spaces, but there will also be privately accessible spaces intended for the residents. And that will include item number 6 here, which is the amenity plaza. There is a pool. And then just overall, wanted to point out that there is a considerable amount of green space for this site. We are approximating about 40% of the site will remain green, as we're calling it. Again, just some more renderings that have been prepared for this site, just to try to give you a feel of what you'll see from the public streets. Again, this is 38th Avenue at Dakota, looking back to the site. This is the one of the plaza spaces that I mentioned earlier, which will be publicly accessible here at the corner. And then another image showing the grand staircase as it goes up the hill. And then just off to the right of the page there is the dog park at the lower section. And then kind of midway up the hill is where one of the another seating plaza would be located, which leads out to the walking trail along the hill. So it seems like a very inviting space, and you know, it's an amenity for the residents of the development, but also of the greater community too. So it could be a really great space, I think. And then Alex, I'll turn it back over to you. I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add, or if there are any questions from the public that if we want to get into that just yet, or how you want to handle that.
Yeah, no, I think, thank you. I think we've kind of gone over the general points we wanted to make. And being that this is only an hour, I think we want to make sure we leave enough time to answer all the questions anyone has. I think Kathleen said that she would address the questions sent to her in the chat, and then we can answer as applicable.
Thank you. And if you'll keep your I guess keep your screen sharing, Troy, that would be helpful in case we need to bounce around. I'm going to go ahead and put into the chat that I believe everyone can see that so this is going to the Planning Commission on March 9th, and that's the email for to send your thoughts on this project to the Planning Commission. And please feel free to copy me as well so I can see that, or I can pull that from the Planning Commission files. I have not received any questions in the chat, so if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in there. Alex, while we're waiting for any other questions to be sent over to me, could you run through just how many the building numbers that you have, how many buildings it's going to be, how many units, and kind of your overall what's your ground coverage of the site? I know you'll touched on that, but I just wanted to, it was kind of in tiny print that I wrote down. I think I wrote down like 40% green space. Wanted to verify that was accurate. And could you give us again the basics of how many acres you have and that type of thing while we're waiting for any questions?
Sure, yeah, it's Troy's got the screen pulled up now. It's about 9.5 acres, and it'll be, the current concept is 187 units, which is just under 20 units per acre. The green space, we tried to maximize. There's some topography that was challenging in trying to create spaces. So we worked with what we had, but we tried to be as inclusive to the neighborhood as we could, and kind of make it feel like, bring them into the development, and open that up to the community, so that it is kind of a park-like feeling for the greater community. I think with the staircase, the way we designed it, like Troy said, it's a monumental staircase. It's designed, to go sit on it and perch up with a laptop and a coffee, and there's a few landings kind of peppered throughout that concept that would be a nice place to just go sit down. And I think that to get into the density, I think it was an appropriate amount of density. We put a lot of thought into how many units are appropriate, and we started out with a lot more and whittled that way back into what I think is a palatable number for the community. Most of these, again, will be ones and studios. So we're hopeful that, they're, what we put forth is an appropriate amount of units. And I think that we've accomplished that. I think 20 units per acre 187 units on 9 acres is a good number without being too much. And then we're obviously adding traffic solutions that hopefully enhance that that corridor as it currently is.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm gonna become the I'm sorry, we're switching me over to be the presenter because evidently some of the things were not coming to me. So if you've put anything in the chat, if you could send that to me. Okay, there we go. Okay, great. We've gotten that sent over. Thanks. All right. So is there a contractual agreement to not allow short-term rentals? If violated, what happens to the property owner? It was one of the questions. And so how that works is that I would be putting that in part of the rezoning. If this came to council, I would put that in there that they could not have a short-term rental. They would not be issued a permit by the codes. If someone was renting their apartment out as a short-term rental, then that person would be found in violation and would be prosecuted under the metro code, which is fines and penalties that I don't know off the top of my head. Let's see. Okay, can you give us the number of parking spaces, Alex, that y'all will be providing?
Troy may have to answer that one. There's a calculation.
Yes, I will do that momentarily.
And
Yes.
so about
So-
parking spaces, this part of town is now, it has always been in the urban zoning overlay, and recently the Metro Council voted to change the requirements of the urban zoning overlay projects for parking spaces. But projects that are going through in my district during my term will still be required to have the number of parking spaces that they would have previously been required to have. So I assume that y'all have got that number.
We do. Yes. So we are proposing 225 spaces for this development, and that's a surplus of about 9 spaces, I believe.
Okay, so you're parking over what's required, and that's more than one spot per unit.
Yes.
Okay. And so how many units do you have currently?
Currently on the site is 88 units.
Okay. Your start date, you said 2027. Is that your start date, or is that your construction start date or your completion date?
So we're about 2 to 3 years from the relocation effort being completed. And at that point, we would demolish the site, and then it's another 2 years or so to complete a construction project like that. So we're 5 years or so away, assuming everything goes smoothly. So 2027 may be a bit premature. It might be 28. And that would be when the apartment complex would be placed in service.
Okay. And I'd usually try to group these together, but since we had that little glitch there, I'm going to jump back to parking. So some street parking will be eliminated. How will the residents park close to their houses? And I'm sorry we don't have the screen back up, but the question was, you said some street parking will be eliminated. Will residents still be able to park in front of their houses? So currently, Alex, do you have parking on the street, or was that just something that we had put? Because I know that I had recommended y'all do some on-street parking. But do you currently provide that to your tenants?
They use it, but no, that's not a designated spot currently. And then we did discuss having the street parking, and I believe we heard from the community that they didn't want the on-street parking, so that's why we pulled that off.
Okay.
And the intent is that the entire property can be parked on site.
Okay. Okay. Great. And so are these going to be 100% rental units, or will there be any for sale units? And what is your expected rental rate, sales rate to be?
These will be all rental. And again, we're normally affordable housing developers. That's what we do primarily. So as a market rate venture, we would look potentially to add some level of modest affordability, but as a rule, the market rate units, we would, depending on what the market is when it's placed in service, we would look about 90 to 95% of market. We would always kind of pull back to some affordable level below market rate. We wouldn't try to test the market and push those rates up. So we are conservative in nature and would be below that number.
So Alex, while that I sort of understand that answer because I've been on the planning commission and been on council for a little bit, but I don't know what you mean by by what some of those rental rates are.
Well,
Do
it's
you
just hard to
could you
give a
give like
number. So
are you able to give like maybe a today estimate? Because
yeah, so like
obviously
for
whatever
instance,
today is going to be different in 2027 or 2028. But what would like a today example be?
sure. So like maybe if it's 1,500 for a 1 bedroom now is market for new construction and infill, we might prices at 1,250 or 1,300.
Okay. Right. And you said there would be, it's 100% rental.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's see here. What was the traffic impact, your traffic impact study, you said included 37th and Murphy. And let me take a point of personal or council privilege here. We are having on 37th Avenue, it was accepted into the traffic calming program, and there is some traffic calming slated. I believe it might be, I don't want to say speed humps, but I think it's speed humps. But they are in the queue to get bid out and installed in the next couple of months. So 37th Avenue is getting traffic calming over the course of the summer. But so, Alex, do you know what your traffic impact study said, if anything, about 37th and Murphy? Because that's a little further away than, I mean, there's other intersections before there that I would have expected to be included. But do you know what your traffic impact study said about the intersection at 37th and Murphy?
Alex, I can take that if you'd like, or if you want to handle it, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably more appropriate to answer that question.
Okay. Yeah. So the 4 intersections that were studied, just first of all, was in coordination with NDOT. So they actually helped us with the scope and told us which intersections were the ones that we needed to study. So at Murphy Road and 37th, there were no intersection control changes or additional laneage that was recommended at that intersection due to the impact of Skyview.
Okay. Were there any, did your traffic impact study say anything about traffic calming on 38th, such as speed bumps with your increase in unit count?
So I'm not a transportation engineer. I don't think that the traffic study looked at traffic calming as one of the, aspects of that report.
It does have a 4-way stop proposed at 38th and Dakota, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So there'll be a 4-way stop. And I believe there were some maybe, stop ahead type signage that's proposed as well.
Okay. So overall, it sounds like your traffic impact study is having y'all do some signage, some pavement marking and that type of thing.
That's right.
Okay. So Nashville is losing too many trees. That has come in as a what will be the tree replacement policy. And I will announce I do have tree legislation currently being evaluated by the Planning Commission that I had a meeting on, and we'll have an announcement about later this week. But Troy and Alex, can y'all talk about the current Nashville tree? How many trees will be taken down, if you know that, and what your replacement policy is required by Metro?
So we have not yet studied, the number of trees that will be removed from the site, but we will, at the absolute bare minimum, be meeting the Metro requirement for 22 TDUs per acre. But we have been in conversation with planning and have told them that we would provide above that number. We really don't have a specific number that we're, trying to hit. But I know Alex is committed to, providing like a beautifully landscaped site. So, I think
Yeah, we're very landscape oriented, and excited about your legislation, because definitely as many trees and otherwise landscaping as we can fit on there, that we're going to load it up.
Okay, great. And is there a reason? So NDOT, formerly Public Works, it's now the Department of Transportation. They tell the developers what intersections are going to be studied in the traffic impact study. Is there a reason why 37th and Sentinel was not studied in the traffic impact study? Was there conversation around that, or was there that there wasn't an expected impact change there?
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't directly involved in those conversations when the traffic impact study was prepared. All I know is that those were the 4 intersections that were requested to be studied. So I'm not exactly sure what went into that equation for figuring out which ones should and should not be included.
Okay. And there is a question about the single lane underpass on 37th, and did the traffic impact study find this to be an issue? Traffic does back up there all the time. And so yes, constituent that sent that in, I totally agree. The situation with that underpass being one lane is the railroads have tremendous ability to not have to listen to local government. They are federally regulated, and because that is a railroad underpass, getting them to change that would basically take an act of Congress. And so, unfortunately, until we are able to have some leverage to get the railroad to change that underpass, we are basically stuck with it. But there has been some safety improvements made there early in my first term, and the sidewalk that y'all saw completed there was a part of those safety improvements that we tried to get through. All right. So if you have any more questions, please put them in the chat because I have run out of the ones that have been sent to me. So if you have any more questions, please put them in the chat.
I see some hand raises. I don't know if they're sending in their comments as well or not.
Oh no. Please, please just send them into the chat box, your comments, or feel free to email me or the planning commission with them. If you have additional questions after this meeting about the development, please feel free to send them to me, and I'll have I can forward them to the development team, and they'll respond to them. So, okay. So one of the main concerns is about that a constituent has is about traffic on 38th Avenue. Um, can we consider other traffic mitigating issues on 38th in particular? So I think what would be really great is I need to see when NDOT, I think currently it may be open. They open their traffic calming applications about this time of year, and about in June or July. They have about a 4-week window to apply applications for. And I really strongly recommend that all of you who are listening here tonight that live in Sylvan Heights or want to live in Sylvan Heights or are developing in Sylvan Heights, y'all really need to turn in a traffic calming application, because that getting that application into the program gets you on the list. We may not get picked for a traffic calming project this go around. They only have so many that they can pick each time, but you stay on the list. And so it's important to just get on that list, because there's only so much we can require a development like this to do. And those other things we can get Metro to do, but we have to get into that traffic calming application. Alex, can you talk a little bit more about how, when, where, how far will current residents be relocated? Do you have any updates on that aspect of this development?
Sure. So, like I said, it's a very long-term effort that we just completed with a project under construction in East Nashville. So we're working with Metro Planning currently on finding a tract of land and leasing it from Metro that enables it to be on a transit corridor in a good area of town with the space required to have the green space package and amenity package that we'd like to have. We'd also like to double or triple the unit count that's currently at Skyview, which increases the affordable housing product in Nashville. And so I plan to work with Nashville. They mentioned that they may have an RFP early next year or late this year, and an effort to offer some of those pieces of land owned by Nashville for affordable housing. So we plan on applying to those RFPs, and with our rental assistance contract should be looked at quite favorably. That then we have to go to Housing and Urban Development and request a transfer to that site, which takes a year. A lot of these things can go concurrently. And then we would go to THDA and apply for bonds in order to produce the equity and the loan required to complete a construction project of that scale. Again, that takes a year or so to get worked through. And then it's a 2-year construction period. HUD has a litany of guidelines and rules and regulations governing these HAP contracts to ensure that when they're relocated in an appropriate place. THDA has guidelines of where they want affordable housing located. And then, of course, there's zoning regulations in Nashville that we'll have to follow. And then there's practical location requirements that we'll need to meet, some for our financing and otherwise. But ideally, they're not in an area of a high poverty rate. They're on a transit corridor. They're in an area with good schools. It's ideally flat. And it's in an amenity-rich area with walkable access to most everything that they need. The reason we're pursuing Metro Nashville land is because we can lease it. If you were in the private sector to buy that land, it's exorbitantly expensive, and it doesn't last very long with all of the development and attention that Nashville's getting. It's just a difficult piece to find. But we've met with Metro and the mayor's office on a couple occasions now, and they're committed to helping us find land and working with us on that procurement process.
But so let me clarify, because I know you've explained this to me before also, and that was a whole lot of good information, but also a little bit high tech for me still. So no, that's okay. I appreciate that you're knowledgeable in this. So before you can break ground on or demolish your current units, do your residents have to be housed, your tenants housed in their new housing?
Yes. Yeah. We'll have to
Okay.
have a full apartment complex built, everyone moved in, all expenses paid. We'll have a dedicated relocation team that'll meet with every single resident and their family. We'll learn what they need, what they don't need. We'll put them in touch with our nonprofit team and coordinate the logistics of those moves. And all of that has to happen. They'll be happy in a brand new facility with every amenity I can fit in there.
And Alex, that's not just out of the goodness of your heart, right? That is required by the federal government program that you're in.
That's correct.
Okay. I mean, I know, I mean, I did not mean that as you're not a nice person, but I wanted to make
No,
sure
I understand.
that
That's
that's
fine.
not
Yeah,
just
no,
you
there are a
saying.
lot of people that are going to make sure that this happens. There's a whole bunch of oversight in these programs.
Okay. Okay. So we are out of questions again, but we're also we are at 6:15. So we have about 15 more minutes. So if you have any more questions, please pop them into the over in the chat to me, and we will get I will happy to ask them and follow up on them. Give it another minute or so to fill in there. Okay. I am not seeing any other questions come in. We'll give it another second. Again, my email is Kathleen, that's KATHLEEN .Murphy, MURPHY at Nashville.gov. The planning commissioners are planning.commissioners at Nashville.gov. And you can just put in the subject line or in the body of the email that you were talking about Skyview or 307 Susannah Avenue. And that is what will trigger it to be tracked with this project that is slated to go before the Planning Commission on March 9th. If you email me in the next week, like I said at the beginning of this meeting, I am recovering from hip replacement surgery, and so I do have an auto response on my email right now, just because I'm not checking it all day, every day right now as I'm in recovery. But so you'll get that, but I'll look out for it. And we did just get 2 questions in, so we can do those and then wrap up. And there will be a recording of this meeting. It will be put out by Metro Nashville Network. I'll try to get that link and put it out as well, but it will be on the Metro YouTube channels. You can find that on the Metro website, nashville.gov, in the Nashville, it's the Metro Nashville Network, MNN. So will anybody be considering the living conditions for the people along Dakota and 38th as to the air, noise, pollution, and safety with so many new cars? So Alex, do you want to address the considerations of the people who live along Dakota and 38th with, I guess there will be additional, how many parking spots do you have now?
I'm not positive on the current parking. It's a family development, so it's got a higher parking ratio. There's more 3s and 4s in that development than there will be in the proposed development, but I'm not positive on the exact number.
Okay.
It's probably close to 200.
And so as the question was kind of about the living conditions for the surrounding properties, typically when you have single family homes next to a kind of multifamily home development like this, there are buffer requirements. Do you know your buffer requirements here, or just kind of what they are, and how much buffer you will be providing? Or or do you have relatively the same footprint of buildings now that you are proposing?
Yeah, we're sticking very close to the existing building footprint, and that was something that was in our design intent, was to bring the multifamily building up to the middle of the property in order to capture those views, and then along Dakota and 38, we put the manor homes, and the intent there is to that those look similar to the housing that's being developed around it. They're just cut into apartments instead of one grand home. And yet, we definitely took into consideration the immediate adjacent neighbors and think that we've created and beautified that from what's currently there to what we have proposed by, you know, adding large sidewalks, a plaza at the intersection, the grand staircase, and the dog park, which if the community wanted to be a playground, you know, the intent is for it to be used by the community. So I think that we've enhanced and beautified. We'll have a lot of new street trees and streetscaping that goes along those road frontages and along the frontage of those buildings. You also won't have that, you know, thick, you know, undeveloped brush along that Dakota frontage, and it'll be a nice beautified streetscape. So the cars coming and going, I'm hopeful that is limited. We've tried to limit that within our design intent so that we promote walkability, and in each unit you've got a little at-home office hub. And again, they're mostly going to be studios and ones, so it's a mobile workforce that's not hopefully going to get in their car and go drive everywhere they need to go, but can work on site, work from home, can walk down 39th to L&L and grab a coffee and work in that facility or whatever they want to do. But that's definitely something we considered, and I feel like we've addressed it. So I hope that's kind of the consensus.
There was one more question that came in about if neighbors can see the slides. Do you mind sending me just shooting me an email with your slides that I could put on my Facebook page?
Sure.
Okay, great. Troy, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
Not really. I was just going to mention, you know, Alex was mentioning some of the landscape features and everything. He may have mentioned, I just wanted to reiterate, we are proposing a landscape buffer between the site and the neighboring site. So all the homes around will have a buffer between them.
Okay. Okay, right. I should, no offense, Alex. I guess that should have gone to Troy, your actual landscape architect. So, okay. So any other questions if you want to pop them in the chat as we're at 6:22. So we have a few more minutes if you have any other questions. Okay. All right. So they will send me the slides. I will drop them onto my Facebook page, which is just my name, Councilmember Kathleen Murphy. Maybe it says District 24. It has my logo as the thing. And so look for that there sometime this week. And again, this is going to where this is currently is it's slated to go before the Planning Commission on March 9th. And then from there, next steps will be decided. If it is approved at the Planning Commission, it then goes on to council. If it's not approved, then we go back to the drawing board with the community and see what happens there. So if you have anything you want to email me, feel free to do that. Also, don't forget that Hub Nashville is a great way if you've got a pothole or you would like to have a stop sign requested somewhere, or if you want to maybe have your neighbor's trash keeps getting turned over, please turn that into Hub Nashville. That's hub.nashville.gov. It's fabulous because you don't have to worry about an issue getting lost in my inbox. You can just the department will email with you directly. But if you do have trouble, if your trash or recycling is not being picked up, send it to Hub Nashville, then send me the Hub complaint case number that they give you, and I can have the council office follow up and see what is going on with that too. So Hub is fabulous. It's got tons of options. It doesn't make council members obsolete, but it helps you make sure you don't get lost in our inboxes. So with that, I haven't gotten any other things in the chat, so we can wrap up. Thank you all for coming out. And again, thank you for having the flexibility to be virtual with me tonight. And I appreciate it, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.